my name is Monica Adrian, and I'd like to share with you about my research project, the effects of PECS training on a 2-year-old child with limited verbal language. So why am I interested in this topic? It's estimated that between 13.4 and 19.1% of 2-year-old children may have a delay in language development, and very few researchers have examined the use of PECS with children younger than 3. So when is the right time to provide intervention? Professionals have also disagreed over the appropriate time to introduce augmentative and alternative communication to young children who have already been identified with language delays. Many only consider it after all attempts to get verbal language to be produced has happened. So toddlers with language delays are at risk for behavioral challenges and social skills delays, and we really feel that early intervention may change the trajectory of a child's expressive language development. So my purpose for this study is I want to make sure that children get early intervention in a timely manner as soon as we know that that concern can be present. So delaying intervention until a child is older or in order to be certain that a child has a disability may result in missing a key time in a child's development to provide early intervention, which also the longer that the child is able to get his or her needs met in maladaptive ways, we might be accidentally rewarding or reinforcing those unwanted behaviors instead of using that time to teach more appropriate functional behaviors. So conducting research on the effects of using PECS with children who are younger than 3 is a critical area of study which can lead to further research that can inform student outcomes. So the purpose of my particular study is to teach one child who's 2 to use PECS to improve her functional communication. So my research questions, there are 3. By the time I'm done, maybe I'm only going to be looking at 2 of them, but we'll see. Does 101 PECS training with 2-year-old children with expressive language delays increase independent requesting behaviors with picture icons? Also, does 101 PECS training increase verbal language or approximation of words or vocal utterances? And lastly, does 101 PECS training with 2-year-old children with expressive language delays decrease undesirable attempts to make requests? This is the one that I might end up crossing off of the list of questions, because even though in my study so far she has displayed a lot of unwanted behaviors, they're not exactly happening when I am conducting the intervention. So we'll see. Stay tuned. So the history of PECS. This intervention approach was created by Andy Bondi and Lori Frost while working with young children with autism. PECS is a form of augmentative and alternative communication, and the PECS protocol has a clear emphasis on the use of reinforcement, prompting, shaping, error correction, data collection, and analysis. So here are some pictures that might give you an idea of what PECS are. PECS are the picture exchange communication system, and really what you see here is one person handing a picture to another person, because this is the way the child or the person is expressing, in this case, something that they are desiring or wanting. As more PECS training occurs with children, they actually can move on to comment and get more complicated in their communication with pictures. So the PECS research has shown that it has high social validity. PECS is a widely accepted intervention. Children can be successfully trained to use PECS by a variety of professionals with a variety of education levels, and parents have been trained successfully to use PECS with children, and children have been trained to use PECS successfully with children with disabilities or delays. So a great advantage of PECS is that children using the pictures can interact with multiple communication partners and can be easily understood by an untrained person, as opposed to maybe manual sign language, where if the person who was being communicated with didn't really know the signs, they may not know what the child is communicating to them. But using a picture, it's much more clear what the child is expressing. So the research on PECS shows that there are positive effects on social skills. PECS intervention has given children a way to express themselves and make choices. The design itself lends it to be children being successful in establishing independence and making initiations. Also, gains have been made for children's joint attention once they've been taught to use PECS. So there's also some strong evidence growing that there's a positive influence on children's behavior. There appears to be a preliminary support for an inverse relationship between the acquisition of PECS use and the decrease in maladaptive behavior. So the reason that there isn't more research is that it's really hard to get the baseline data and the intervention data. And so many of the studies have anecdotal evidence showing that children's behaviors have decreased. But as I'm learning myself, it's not as easy to just focus on the challenging behaviors as I was hoping it would be, even though they've been occurring. So the research also shows that there have been positive effects on functional communication and verbal language. Children's requesting behaviors overall have increased. There has been evidence of the emergence or increase in vocalizations or verbal language. It's important to note that PECS was never intended to be a training tool to elicit verbal language. However, what studies and observations have found is that many children, once they began using PECS, also started to express more verbal language or vocalization. So that is something that I am looking at in my study as well. Certainly what we do know is there is a consensus among the literature that the introduction of PECS intervention does not delay speech or verbal language. And that's very important because historically, professionals were more hesitant to introduce an intervention like PECS or manual signs or a speech generating device if they felt it would delay the child using verbal language himself or herself. But overall now there's a consensus that introducing any type of augmentative communication that helps the child have functional communication does not interfere with verbal language development. So my study. This is a single case design study that explores the effects of picture exchange system training with a 2-year-old on independent manding, so requesting using picture icons. And we're using a changing criterion design, and this study will be used to shape the terminal behavior. So this design will also measure the relationship between both the child's use of PECS and maladaptive behaviors and verbal language or vocalizations. So who is my participant and where am I conducting the research? So I'm working with a little girl. She's 2.5 years old. She does qualify for Early Start services for a delay in communication. She has very limited verbal capabilities. In fact, when I first chose her to be in my study, she was really using fewer than 10 words a day. And even now, she still doesn't have a very robust vocabulary. She has started verbalizing more labels, so she's starting to label things in her environment, but still she has a very significant language delay for a child her age. She does not typically use words to make requests at all. In my baseline data, when she sees the item that she desires, she basically just walks up to mom, and typically that's how she gets her needs met. And historically she might walk mom over to an object that she was interested in. And then, like many children, if she wasn't getting what she thought she was trying to express, children might tantrum. So that really was her history also. So the research is being conducted in the family's home. The independent variable is the training, specifically the training on the use of PECS. The child will be trained using the PECS protocol that's listed in the training manual created by Frost and Bondi. And the child will be trained on phases 1, 2, and 3 sequentially. This comes into play when we're talking about my case design with the changing criterion. Phases 2 and 3 are going to be slightly modified to align with this particular experimental design, But with each progressive phase, the child will be required to reach a new criterion to access a preferred item with the picture exchange. So the first phase, we are teaching the child how to make the exchange with the picture icon, and the communication partner, who is the mother, is right there, and the communication book is right there, and the child, at this point, to teach her how to use it, I'm prompting her to make the exchange with the mother until she starts to show some independence. Once there's enough independence, then we'll move to phase 2, and we incorporate distance. And so then the child will have to get the picture icon and walk 5 feet to make the exchange with mom. And then the third phase, we actually incorporate a distractor icon. And so there'll be the picture of the preferred icon, a distractor icon, and we'll still incorporate the distance that the child has to travel to make the request with the picture to her communication partner. I'm also going to be taking some generalization data once we finish the 3 phases. So that'll give us some interesting information too. We'll see, depending on how much time we have left in the course, I'd like to see if she can use the pictures during playgroup or in another part of the home, or maybe at the park, or maybe with different communication partners. So the dependent variables, the dependent variable is actually her independently exchanging the PEC icon to request a desired item. And then the second dependent variable is the inappropriate or maladaptive behaviors. And then the third dependent variable is the verbalizations or vocalizations that she's using when she's trying to request an item. The experimental design, as I mentioned, is a single subject method that will be used. It's changing criterion. PECS is designed to be learned in a sequential manner, with each phase building on one before. So this method will establish an experimental control because each phase will act as a baseline for the subsequent phase. So previous research has been conducted with the changing criterion design, and I'm going to have a few of those articles available for you to look at. This is my progress so far. So this is the beginning of my changing criterion graph. I've completed 6 baseline sessions. Sessions were conducted 4 separate days, ranging across a 3-week period. And session 3 consisted of only 4 intervals because the child was uncooperative. On the same day as the final baseline session, I also conducted the first intervention session, and that's what I have completed so far. So my summary: data will be collected during baseline, 3 treatment phases, and a generalization phase. All procedures used will be subjected to a fidelity check. Data collected will be supported through an inter-rater reliability assessment, and all data will be plotted on graphs for visual interpretation. So what have my challenges been? Well, 2-year-olds are on their own schedule. She may be tired when I show up and not want to work. She may be cranky. She may just not want to cooperate. She gets sick. She's gotten sick and has had a tooth infection. Family members get sick. Her father just had knee surgery yesterday. All of this plays into our scheduling and, ultimately can affect the research findings. The child lives about 45 miles away from me. Also, the home is a natural environment, not a lab. So if she wants to go grab other toys to play with or walk away to another room, she's been doing that when she's done. And we've had a couple of technical difficulties with videotaping, although ultimately I'm really glad that a good portion of our intervals and trials have been recorded. The strengths. I think this research will provide much needed data on the effects of PECS training with 2-year-olds. This family is very cooperative and open to my visits. The child can really benefit from this intervention. I really think that once she's able to learn how to use the pictures to make requests, her stress level and the family's stress level will be decreased because she's going to have a clear, better way to communicate with the people she's trying to communicate with. Here are a list of my references. And so thank you for your time.